All right. So today we are going to talk about custom controllers, right? And we will use the Apex programming for creating the custom controllers. So in last session we talked about basics of Apex. We saw the data types. Okay. Primarily we're talking about the data types. Now there's a very simple concept that we need to understand. There are a few more terminologies that we need to understand. One is a method. Okay. So whatever you want to do with your variables, that is defined inside a method. Okay, defining variable will not perform anything. Your work will be done, your instructions should be written as methods. Okay, so there is the concept of a method, and in the method we write the instruction, whatever we want to do. We want to add two variables, we want to multiply them, we want to divide them, whatever we want to do with the variables, that needs to be written in the method. Variables is something which we all understand very well. Then there is the concept of class. What's a class? Class is basically, if I have to put it in a simple language, it's basically collection of variables and methods. Okay, so class is where you define certain variables and you define certain methods, all right, and you put them collectively inside a class. Whenever you have to call that method, instead of calling the method directly, what you can do is you can call the class, and through the class you call the method. Okay, for example, let's say you create a class called maths, and inside this maths class you define two variables, uh, integer x and integer y. Okay, and you might want to define a few methods inside it. So let's say you define a method called add. Now this add method will do what? It will do x plus y. Then you will define a method called subtract. What will the subtract method do? It will, let's say, do x minus y, right? So what needs to be done, the way we're done with the variable, that needs to be defined inside the method, right? So that's the basic understanding. So whenever I have to call this method, the add method, I'll call it through the class maths class. The same way you can have another class, let's say okay, English, and then you can have a variable called string abc. Okay, then you can have a method here, let's say past tense. So this past tense should basically convert the string into the past tense, and then you can have a method for present tense. So correct. So basically the concept of class is to put the methods, similar kind of methods which are used for a certain functionality in one place, so that whenever you want to reach out to those methods, you can easily access them through the class. Correct. So that's basically the kind of concept that you need to understand about the class. So there are three things that we're going to deal with: variables, which we very well understand what exactly a variable is; method, which will have to hold the instructions, what needs to be done with the variables; class will be the collection of variables and methods. All right. So let's have this simple concept. Now what we will need to do, all that we have to do is we just have to create a class, and use it as a custom controller. So all that you have to do is you just have to create a class, and you'll have to use the class as a custom controller for your Visual Force page. Right? So as we discussed earlier, that we have to specifically give the instructions for the Visual Force page. What do we want the Visual Force page to do? So we have to mention, or we have to define those instructions. Now what we are talking about is just create a class and use it as a custom controller. So, write the instructions that you want to use on the visual force page in a class. Call that class as a controller for the page. That's it. Correct? So, as simple as have your visual force page. You want to use some logics here. Create a class. Whatever methods you want to use on this page, define all those methods in this class. Whatever variables are required for that, define everything. Then call this class as a controller on the page. That's it. Call it as a controller on this page. So earlier we were calling the standard controller. Now we are going to call the custom controller on this page. And after that, once you have called the class as a controller for the page, you will be able to use the methods. Let's say there is this method 1. You will be able to call the method 1 here. You will be able to call the method 2. You will be able to call method 3. So whatever. Correct? So that's how simple it's going to be. All right. Now, since we are talking about methods, now let me give you a little more brief on a method. Okay. All right. Let's understand one more thing here. A method will usually either have a return type or yeah. So a method will have a return type. So after the execution of the method, that method will return something. Right? Now there can be void methods and there can be non-void methods. So some methods will not return anything. Those methods are going to be the void methods, and you will have to specify whether a method is a void method or a non-void method. All right. So you have to define whether a method is a void or a non-void method. So whether your method returns any value, let's say you design a method for addition, x plus y, then it should return the result of x plus y, right? We are expecting a return from that method. All right. That's a non-void method. What is it returning? Let's say there's a method add. What this method is going to do? It's going to add x plus y, which are both integers. Let's say return some z. That is also going to be an integer. So what is the return type? Return type is integer. So after the completion of this method, we are going to receive an integer. The return type is integer. So if it's a non-void method, you have to define the return type also. In Apex, if you're defining a non-void method which needs to return something, you will have to specify what data type actually it's going to return. You'll have to specify it. If it's a void method, then it will not return anything. For example, in a method, we have created a method called create. This method adds a record in the system. Okay, it enters a record in the system, right? And it does not return anything. You don't need a return. You don't need a value back. So that's going to be a void method. So if it's a void method, if it's not returning anything, then you don't have to worry about the return type. Correct? But every time you're creating a method, you have to specify whether that method is a void or a non-void method. If it's a non-void method, then you have to specify the return type of the method. As simple as that. All right. Now, while we work with visual force pages, so for a page, you will primarily be working with a getter method, a setter method, and an action method. Okay, these are three primary methods that we will be dealing with: getter, setter, action. Okay, what is a getter method? A getter method, or we also call it a get method. A get method is primarily used for getting the value from the program to the page. Okay, so if you want to display some output on the page, you can use a get method. So get method is usually used for taking the value and displaying it on the page. Then comes the setter method. What's the set method? Set method, the job of set method is setting the value of a variable from page to program. Okay, so this is basically used for input values when you want to take the input from the page and use it in the program. Correct. So if this is your code and this is your page, if you want to send a value from the code to the page, then it should be a get method. If you want to take an input from the page to the code, then it should be the set method. Got it? So for example, just think about what happens when you try to perform a search on Google. When you go to google.com, you type a query and then you try to find something. What happens there? You enter a value. Let's say you're trying to search for something. Let's say okay, and now you are trying to search something. You are on the user interface. You are basically on the page. Correct. Google must have written some program in the backend, right? And you are trying to search something. You are trying to search Salesforce. Now this value needs to be put in the program. The moment I put, press enter, this value needs to be sent to the program, whatever program is running in the backend. So this will use a set method to send this value to the program. All right, and then after execution of this program, we will get some result. Press enter. We get these results. Correct. This has come here with the help of a get method. Got it? So the query that I'm typing in or the keyword that I'm typing in, that goes into the program. That's a set method. Results, are found and they are reflected on the page. This is a get method. Okay. So this is more used for displaying outputs, and this is more used for taking the inputs. All right. Action method can be used for performing any action. Okay. This is used for performing action. Performing action can be moving from one page to other page where there is no concept of input output. So anything else is going to be an action method. Okay, like you want to let's say move to another page, update data, send an email. All these are going to be action methods, right? So something where neither input nor output is happening, those methods are basically the action methods. Correct. So in Visual Force page, we will be primarily using these three types of methods: get method, set method, action method. Right. So let's go ahead and see the get method first. We'll work with the get method first. Right. So let's straight away get into Salesforce and start creating a controller or a class which uses a get method. All right. Priya, do you have the login ID password of the account that we just created the other day? Can you type it in? I somehow have forgotten or missed out. Right. So to create a class, all that you need to do is you just need to go to setup, develop, Apex classes. This is where we will create the class. Okay. Now let me create a simple class where I would have a string defined and I want to display the string on the Visual Force page. So if I want to display the string on the Visual Force page, which method do you think I'll need? I just want to define a string in my program and I want to display it on the Visual Force page. Which method do you think we are going to need? Get method, set method, action method. Which one?
Get method.
Get method. Simple. So all that you have to do is just go define a string, define a get method, and before that create a class. So all that you have to do, first of all, create a class. So you have to define the class and the name of the class, whatever you want to put name of the class. Okay. Your class can be public, your class can be private. Okay. We are any class that you are going to use as a visual force controller, that always has to be public. A public class is something which can be called outside this class. So I'm going to call this class on the visual force page, so it definitely has to be a public class always for visual force controllers. Right. So public class, whatever name of the class, and now you define a string xyz equals, hey, how are you? So this is what my string has. I want to display this value on the visual force page. So I'll need to define a get method. See, you cannot call the variable directly on the page. You can call a variable, method. So you have to define a method which returns the value of this particular thing. Okay. So because I have to call the method also on the visual force page, the method also has to be public. It's a non-void method because I want this method to return the value of xyz. Okay. And as I told you earlier, that every time you are trying to define a non-void method, you have to define the return type of that. So what is the return type for this particular method which is going to return xyz? What will be the return type for this? If I create a method to return this xyz, what will be the return type for that?
String.
String. Correct, because it's finally a string. Get method will always start with the keyword get. Okay, and after that you can name it whatever you want. Method 1. Okay, so you have created the method. It's public method. Return type I have defined string. Get is the keyword you have to use, and then the method name, whatever method name you want to put. And then inside this method you have to define what do you want to return. Return xyz. That's it. Done.
Just
Now the moment you call this method, method 1, the page will display this. Clear? So let me just save it, and alright. So let me just save this class, go to Visual Force page. The class is saved. Go to the Visual Force page. The Visual Force page, all that you have to do is you just have to go ahead and create a page. fx slash whatever page name if you want. Okay, so this time while you are calling that class here as a controller, all that you have to do is you just have to write controller C1, name of the class. Save it. Now since you have called that class as a controller on this page, now this page is connected to that um, this page is connected to this particular class. Alright. Now I can call the method from there. What is the name of my method? Method 1. So this is the syntax for calling the method. Within these curly brackets, start with an exclamation mark and write the name of the method. Now what is this supposed to return? It is supposed to return xyz. What is the value of xyz? This. So this is what it's gonna display on the page. Save. See. Fine. So any variable you have to define, display on the Visual Force page, all that you have to do is you just have to, kind of define the variable in the program, create a get method for that particular variable, and then call the get method on the Visual Force page. As simple as that. Got it? So let's say integer x equals 40, integer y equals 50. Integer result. Okay, I've not given any value to it. Then I define a method public integer add. Okay, so in this method I'm gonna add both the integers and return the result. Right. So I can say result equals x plus y, return result. Right. So before it returns a result, it is going to add x plus y and assign that value to result, and then it will return the result. Right. The same way I can define one more method, multiply. And multiply, it will multiply both of them and return the result. Right. So I've created my methods. Right. Now just go here, put a line break. If you call add method, see what it returns. Okay, there's a small mistake that we have done. We have not used the keyword get. I told you if it's a get method, you have to use the keyword get. Okay, so that's a mistake that we have made here. Now call add method here. See, add method sums up both the integers and returns me the result. Same way, the multiply method will multiply the values and return you the result. Alright, simple. Now this was about the primitives. So string, integer. Same way you can call SObjects also. So let me go ahead and create another class and try to get the values of the SObjects on the Visual Force page. Class C2 count A equals new count name equals ABC Limited industry equals technology. Okay. Now if I want to display this value on the Visual Force page, I've defined a new account which has a name ABC Limited and industry technology. I want to display this on the Visual Force page. Same, we have to define a get method, but this time the return type is going to be what? String, integer, or something else. What will be the return type here? If I want a get method to return the value of account A, what will be the return type? What will be the return type? So a method which returns string, return type for that method is defined as a string. A method which returns an integer, the return type for that method is defined as an integer. So what should be the return type for this one?
Object itself, I think.
Yes, the S object. Correct. Get. Now whatever name you want to put for the method, M1, M1, whatever name you want to put, that's not a problem. And I say return A. Okay. Now on the Visual Force page, first of all, I'll have to call this class as a controller. Let me create another Visual Force page for this. First of all, we need to call the class as a controller. Controller equals C2, and then you have to call the method. Now the problem here is if you just sorry, not here, M1. Okay, the problem here is if you just called M1, then the computer will not understand or the system will not understand what exactly you are asking for, because M1 is not a single value. M1 has a name, it has an industry. So that's the reason why if you just call M1, then it will not display anything. It would not throw an error, it would not even display anything. It will display value if you say that M1 dot name. So what exactly you want to see in M1? M1 is collection of values. It has a name, industry, it can have a phone, it can have a fax number. What exactly you want to view? That needs to be specified. The moment you say M1 dot name, then it will show you the name. If you say, so in case of an S object, you have to specify the field name also, what exactly you are trying to display. That's it. Got it? Similarly, you can have another account B equals, so this was a new account and we hard coded the value for this account. Similarly, you can write something like select name type industry from account where name equals this. All right. Right. So this can be the situation, and you can define it like one more method, public count get m2, okay, return b. All right. Now, in this particular account B, I have used a query to fetch the data from the record where the name of the record is Burlington Textile. Right. That's what we have defined. So we are good to save this code. Go ahead and here if you call this m2 dot name m2 dot phone, so this will fetch the data from the database. See, name is this, phone number is this. So if you want to define a new record, then you should use this method. If you want to fetch a record, existing record, then you should use the select statement for it. Got it? So this is how it will work. This is how we use it. Clear on this? Let me know if there is any
Can we
question
have,
or doubt.
yeah,
Mhm.
hi, can we have both A and B in the same method?
Can you have both?
Uh, Account A and account B under the same method, like instead of return A, can we have both the things under this get M1,
No,
A and B?
no.
Okay.
So any particular method will return one thing. All right. So what you can do is you can add A and B into a list of account, create one more variable list of account, add both
Yeah,
of them into that list, and then return that list. So define a method which returns a list. All right. Then
yeah,
these
yeah,
two
sure.
values can be returned in the same method. But as two
And
different variables, no.
yeah, and can we have this account A and A variable inside the method written under the method?
This thing,
Yeah, that thing.
you have to define the variable outside. All right.
Okay,
So you should at least do
should be
this,
outside.
initiate it outside,
Yeah,
and here you can say
okay. Yeah, that's, thank you.
right. Okay, so that's what we will be doing today. So just go back and work on this particular thing, especially try and work with these small codes. Uh, try to use some integers, some strings, or take some record, try to query some data. I just want you to get a hold on the get method, how you're defining variables and all, and then in the next session we are going to do a few more examples, and which are going to be a little more complex, not I would should not say complex, a little more uh, advanced as compared to the ones that we have done today, right? So I just want you to have some time and get a hold on this particular thing, so how we are defining data types and then how we are defining the get methods. All right. All right. Thank you guys. Bye.